Unit 21. Sub-hyper para meta perant / anti-contra Greek and Latin borrowings. Sub means under. So a subway runs under the streets, and a submarine moves under the ocean's surface. A subject is a person under the authority of another. A movie subplot is lower in importance than the main plot. Subscribe once meant to write one's name underneath, so subscription was the act of signing a document or agreement. Subconscious existing in the mind just below the level of awareness. After dropping 3 dishes in a week, she began thinking there might be some kind of subconscious agitation behind her case of butterfingers. We're rarely aware, or at least fully aware, of our subconscious mental activity. But subconscious thought does affect our feelings and behavior, and it's often revealed in dreams, artistic expression, and slips of the tongue. The subconscious mind can be a hiding place for anxiety, a source of creativity, and often the reason behind our own mysterious behavior. Subjugate, to bring under control and rule as a subject, conquer, subdue. The country's government claimed it was just trying to protect national security, but some saw its actions as an attempt to subjugate the news media. Since jugus means yoke in Latin, subjugate means literally bring under the yoke. Farmers control oxen by means of a heavy wooden yoke over their shoulders. In ancient Rome, conquered soldiers, stripped of their uniforms, might actually be forced to pass under an ox yoke as a sign of submission to the Roman victors. Even without an actual yoke, what happens to a population that has come under the control of another can be every bit as humiliating. In dozens of countries throughout the world, ethnic minorities are denied basic rights and view themselves as subjugated by their country's government, army, and police. Subliminal, not quite strong enough to be sensed or perceived consciously. A few worried parents claim that some heavy metal songs contain subliminal messages, in the form of words recorded backwards, that urge young fans to take up devil worship. Since the Latin word limen means threshold, something subliminal exists just below the threshold of conscious awareness. The classic example of a subliminal message is "eat popcorn" flashed on a movie screen so quickly that the audience doesn't even notice it consciously. Actually, no such advertising has ever been shown to work. But ordinary ads, both in print and on TV, do contain all kinds of images that shape our response to the product being advertised even when we don't realize it. Try looking carefully at some ads that you like, in order to discover how many ways they may be subliminally affecting you. Subversion 1. An attempt to overthrow a government by working secretly from within. 2. The corrupting of someone or something by weakening their morals, loyalty, or faith. It's sometimes easier for a government to combat attack from outside than subversion from within. Subversion is literally the turning over of something. In the 1950s and 60s, many people worried about communist subversion of the U.S. government, though they often saw subversive activities where none existed. Non-democratic governments often claim that anyone who disagrees with them or joins a demonstration is a subversive. But subversion isn't always quite so serious a matter. When words like weekend, sandwich, job, and camping started being used by the French, for example, some of them began claiming that America was subverting their language. Hyper is a Greek prefix that means above or beyond, so hyper often means about the same thing as super. Hyperinflation is inflation that's growing at a very high rate. To be hypercritical or hypersensitive is to be critical or sensitive beyond the normal. And if you hyperextend a knee or elbow, it means you're actually bending it backward. Hyperactive, excessively active. Stephen King's hyperactive imagination has produced dozens of fantastical stories, not to mention countless nightmares in his readers. For doctors and psychologists, hyperactive describes a condition with unpleasant consequences. Hyperactive children usually have a very short attention span and can't sit still, and hyperactivity can lead to difficulty in learning or just get them in trouble for disturbing their classes. But not every high-spirited child is hyperactive. Having a high energy level is pretty normal for children, and some parents think that prescribing drugs for hyperactivity is mostly just good for the drug companies. Hyperbole, extreme exaggeration. The food at Chez Pierre was good, but it couldn't live up to the hyperbole of the restaurant critics. Advertisers and sports commentators make their living by their skillful use of hyperbole. Presenting each year's Super Bowl as the greatest contest in the history of sports certainly qualifies as hyperbole, especially since the final scores are usually so lopsided. Equally hyperbolic are advertisers' claims that this year's new car model is the revolutionary vehicle you've been waiting for when it's barely different from last year's, which of course was once described in the same glowing terms. Politicians love hyperbole too. Some of them seem convinced that calling a new bill the worst bill ever passed by Congress or comparing the president to Hitler is a great way to win votes. Hypertension, high blood pressure. Pregnancy is often accompanied by mild hypertension that doesn't threaten the mother's life. You might have thought that hypertension was what a movie audience feels near the climax of a thriller, but you would have been wrong. High blood pressure, that is high pressure against the walls of your veins and arteries caused by blood flow, often occurs when the arteries or veins become blocked or narrowed, making the heart work harder to pump blood. But many cases seem to be the result of smoking or taking in too much salt, and many are genetically caused. Hypertension is serious, since it can lead to heart attacks and strokes. Though it often produces no warning symptoms, your blood pressure can be checked quickly and easily by a nurse. If it's high, it can usually be controlled by stopping smoking, losing weight, lowering your salt intake, and exercising, and if all else fails, by medication.